Peace and power, and welcome back to Styles by Nina. Welcome to all of my new subscribers. Welcome back, family. Today we're getting back into Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper. And I'm just going to share it on the screen in case y'all want to just read along instead of hearing me read. All right, so chapter 12. And let me see something. Settings. You gotta excuse the dog next door. Is that it? Okay. Yeah, I want to cool that down. That light will ruin your eyes. Okay, so we're gonna get into it. The Secret Government, Chapter 12, The Secret Government, The Origin, Identity, and Purpose of MJ12, May 23rd, 1989, updated November 21st, 1990. The signs are increasing. The lights in the sky will appear red, blue, green rapidly. Someone is coming from very far and wants to meet the people of Earth. Meetings have already taken place, but those who have really seen have been silent. And that was from Pope John the 22nd in 1935. Perspective. Many sources of information were used to research this chapter. I originally wrote this piece as a research paper. It was first delivered at the MUFON Symposium on July 2nd, 1989 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Most of this knowledge comes directly from or is a result of my own research into the top secret magic material, which I saw and read between the years 1970 and 1973. As a member of the intelligence briefing team of the Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet, since some of this information was derived from sources that I cannot divulge for obvious reasons, and from published sources which I cannot vouch for, this chapter must be termed a hypothesis. I firmly believe that if aliens are real, this is the true nature of the beast. It is the only scenario that has been able to bind all the diverse elements. It is the only scenario that answers all the questions and places the various fundamental mysteries in an arena that makes sense. It is the only explanation which shows the chronology of events and demonstrates that the chronologies, when assembled, match perfectly. The bulk of this, I believe, to be true if the material that I viewed in the Navy is authentic. As for the rest, I do not know, and that is why this paper must be termed A hypothesis. Most historic and current available evidence supports this hypothesis. The secret government. And y'all, I'm just finna put my glasses on, so bear with me. Okay. During the years following World War, let me see. As for the rest, I do not know, and that is why this paper must be termed a hypothesis. Most historic and current available evidence supports this hypothesis. The secret government. During the years following World War II, the government of the United States was confronted with a series of events which were to change beyond prediction its future, and with it the future of humanity. These events were so incredible that they defied belief. A stunned President Truman and his top military commanders found themselves virtually impotent after having just won the most devastating and costly war in history. The United States had developed, used, and was the only nation on earth in possession of the atomic bomb. This new weapon had the potential to destroy any enemy, and even the earth itself. At that time, the United States had the best economy, the most advanced technology, the highest standard of living, exerted the most influence, and fielded the largest, most powerful military forces in history. We can only imagine the confusion and concern when the informed elite of the United States government discovered that an alien spacecraft piloted by insect-like beings from totally incomprehensible culture had crashed in the desert of New Mexico. Between January 1947 and December 1952, at least 16 crashed or downed alien aircraft, 65 alien bodies, and one live alien were recovered. An additional alien craft had exploded, and nothing was recovered from that incident. Of these events, 13 occurred within the borders of the United States, not including the craft which disintegrated in the air. I had to pause and sound a word out of my head first. Yeah. Of these 13, one was in Arizona, 11 were in New Mexico, and one was in Nevada. Excuse me. 3 occurred in foreign countries, and of those, one was in Norway, and the last 2 were in Mexico. Sightings of UFOs were so numerous that serious investigation and debunking of each report became impossible, utilizing the existing intelligence assets. An alien craft was found on February 13, 1948, on a mesa near Aztec, New Mexico. Another craft was located on March 25, 1948, in the White Sands Proving Ground. It was 100 feet in diameter. A total of 17 alien bodies were recovered from those 2 crafts. Or even greater significance, was the discovery of a large number of human body parts stored within both of these vehicles. A demon had reared its head, and paranoia quickly took hold of everyone then in the know. The secret lid immediately became a top secret lid and was screwed down tight. The security blanket was even tighter than that imposed upon the Manhattan Project. In the coming years, these events were to become the most closely guarded secrets in the history of the world. A special group of America's top scientists were organized under the name Project Sign in December 1947 to study the phenomenon. The whole nasty business was continued. Project Sign evolved into Project Grudge in December 1948, a low-level collection and disinformation project named Blue Book was formed under Grudge. 16 volumes were to come out of Grudge. Blue teams were put together to recover the crashed disk and dead or live aliens. The blue teams were later to evolve into alpha teams under the Project Pounce. During these early years, the United States Air Force and the Central Intelligence Agency exercised complete control over the alien secret. In fact, the CIA was formed by presidential executive order, first as the Central Intelligence Group for the express purpose of dealing with the alien presence. Later, the National Security Act was passed establishing it as the Central Intelligence Agency. The National Security Council was established to oversee the intelligence community and especially the alien endeavor. A series of National Security Council memos and executive orders removed the CIA from the sole task of gathering foreign intelligence and slowly but thoroughly legalizing. No, let me start over. And slowly but thoroughly legalized direct action in the form of covert activities at home and abroad. On December 9, 1947, Truman approved issuance of NSC-4 entitled Coordination of Foreign Intelligence Information Measures at the urging of Secretaries Marshall, Forrestal, Patterson, and the Director of State Department's Policy Planning Staff, George Kennan. And I'm reading this slow so I won't fumble over my words. It's a lot. The Foreign and Military Intelligence Book 1, Final Report of the Select Committee to Study Governmental Operations with Respect to Intelligence Activities. The United States Senate 94th Congress, Second Session, Report Number 94-755, April 26, 1976, page 49 states, this directive empowered the Secretary of State to coordinate overseas information activities designed to counter communism. A top secret annex to NSC-4, NSC-4A instructed the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, or the Central Intelligence, to undertake covert psychological activities in pursuit of the aims set forth in NSC-4. The initial authority given the CIA for covert operations under NSC-4A did not establish formal procedures for either coordinating or approving these operations. It simply directed the DCI to undertake covert actions and to ensure through liaison with the state and defense that the resulting operations were consistent with American policy. Later, NSC-4 NSC-10/1 and NSC-10/2 was to supersede NSC-4 and NSC-4A and expand the covert abilities even further. The Office of Policy Coordination, OPC, was chartered to carry out an expanded program of covert activities. NSC-10/1 and NSC-10/2 validated illegal and extralegal practices and procedures as being agreeable to the national security leadership. The reaction was swift. In the eyes of the intelligence community, no holds were barred. Under NSC-10/1, an executive coordination group was established to review, but not approve, covert project proposals. The ECG was secretly tasked to coordinate the alien projects. NSC-1, 0-1, or 10-1, and /2 were interpreted to mean that no one at the top wanted to know about anything until it was over and successful. Sound like some rogue agents to me. These actions established a buffer between the president and the information. It was intended that this buffer serve as means for the president to deny knowledge if leaks divulge the true state of affairs. This buffer was used in later years for the purpose of effectively isolating succeeding presidents from any knowledge of the alien presence other than what the secret government and the intelligence community wanted them to know. NSC-10/2 established a study panel which met secretly and was made up of the scientific minds of the day. The study panel was not called MJ-12. Another NSC memo, NSC-10/5, further outlined the duties of the study panel. These NSC memos and secret executive orders set the stage for creation of MJ-12 only 4 years later. Secretary of Defense James Forrestal objected to the secrecy. He was a very idealistic and religious man. He believed that the public should be told. James Forrestal was also one of the first known abductees. When he began to talk to leaders of the opposition party and leaders of the Congress about the alien program, he was asked to resign by Truman. So he started leaking and they made him resign. I'm sorry, y'all, I gotta stretch. When you get older, you really have to stretch. Oh. He expressed his fears to many people. Rightfully, he believed that he was being watched. This was interpreted by those who were ignorant of the facts as paranoia. Forrestal later was said to have suffered a mental breakdown. He was ordered to the mental ward of Bethesda Naval Hospital. In spite of the fact that the administration had no authority to have him committed, the order was carried out. In fact, it was feared that Forrestal would begin to talk again. He had to be isolated and discredited. His family and friends were denied permission to visit, and finally on March 21st, 1949, Forrestal's brother made a fateful decision. He notified authorities that he intended to remove James from Bethesda on May 22nd. Sometime in the early morning of May 22nd, 1949, agents of the CIA tied a sheet around James Forrestal's neck and fastened the other end to a fixture in his room, then threw James Forrestal out the window. The sheet tore and he plummeted to his death. James Forrestal's secret diaries were confiscated by the CIA and were kept in the White House for many years. Due to public demand, the diaries were eventually rewritten and published in a sanitized version. The real diary information was later furnished by the CIA in a book form to an agent who published the material as fiction. The name of the agent is Whitley Strieber, and the book is Majestic. James Forrestal became one of the first victims of the cover-up. The live alien that had been found wandering in the desert from 1949 Roswell crash was named EBE. EBE. The name had been suggested by Dr. Vannevar Bush and was short for extraterrestrial biological entity. EBE had a tendency to lie, and for over a year would give only the desired answer to questions asked. Those questions which would have resulted in an undesirable answer went unanswered. At some point during the second year of captivity, he began to open up. The information derived from EBE was startling, to say the least. This compilation of his revelations became the foundation of what would later be called the Yellow Book. Photographs were taken of EBE, which, among others, I was to view years later. Project Grudge. In late 1951, EBE became ill. Medical personnel had been unable to determine the cause of EBE's illness and had no background from which to draw. EBE's system was chlorophyll-based, and he processed food into energy much the same as plants. Waste material was excreted the same as plants. Several experts were called in to study the illness. These specialists included medical doctors, botanists, and entomologists. A botanist, Dr. Guillermo Mendoza, was brought in to try and help him recover. Dr. Mendoza worked to save EBE until June 2nd, 1952, when EBE died. Dr. Mendoza became the expert on at least this type alien of biology. This type alien of biology. The movie E.T. is the thinly disguised story of EBE. In a futile attempt to save EBE and to gain favor with this technologically superior race, the United States began broadcasting a call for help early in 1952 into the vast regions of space. The call went unanswered, but the project dubbed Sigma continued as an effort of good faith. President Truman created the Super Secret National Security Agency, NSA, by secret executive order on November 4th, 1952. Its primary purpose was to decipher the alien communications language and to establish a dialogue with extraterrestrials. This most urgent task was a continuation of the earlier effort. The secondary purpose of the NSA was to monitor all communications and emissions from any and all electronic devices worldwide for the purpose of gathering intelligence, both human and alien, and to contact the secret of the alien presence. Project Sigma was successful. The NSA also maintains communications with the lunar base and other secret space programs. By executive order of the President, the NSA is exempt from all laws which do not specifically name the NSA in the text of the law as being subject to that law. That means that if the agency is not spelled out in the text of any and every law passed by Congress, it is not subject to that law or to that or those laws. The NSA now performs many other duties and in fact is the premier agency within the intelligence network. Today, the NSA receives approximately 75% of the monies allotted to the intelligence community. The old saying, where the money goes, therein the power resides, is true. The DCI today is a figurehead maintained as a public ruse. The primary task of the NSA is still alien communications, but now includes other extraterrestrial projects as well. President Truman had been keeping our allies, including the Soviet Union, informed of the developing alien problem. This had been done in case the aliens turned out to be a threat to the human race. Plans were formulated to defend the Earth in case of invasion. Great difficulty was encountered in, maintaining international secrecy. It was decided that an outside group was necessary to coordinate and control international efforts in order to hide the secret from the norm scrutiny of governments by the press. The result was the formation of a secret ruling body which became known as the Bilderberg Group. The group was formed and met for the first time in 1952. They were named after the first publicly known meeting place, the Bilderberg Hotel. That public meeting took place in 1954. They were nicknamed the Bilderbergers. The headquarters of this group is Geneva, Switzerland. The Bilderbergers evolved into a secret world government that now controls everything. The United Nations was then and is now an international joke. Beginning in 1953, a new president occupied the White House. He was a man used to a structured staff organization with a chain of command. His method was to delegate authority and rule by committee. He made major decisions, but only when his advisors were unable to come to a consensus. His normal method was to read through or listen to several alternatives and then approve one. Those who worked closely with him have stated that his favorite comment was just do whatever it takes. He spent a lot of time on the golf course. This was not unusual for a man who had been career Army with the ultimate position of Supreme Allied Commander during the war, a post which had earned him 5 stars. The president was General of the Army Dwight David Eisenhower. During his first year in office, 1953, at least 10 more crashed discs were recovered, along with 26 dead and 4 live aliens. Of the 10, 4 were found in Arizona. 2 in Texas, 1 in New Mexico, 1 in Louisiana, 1 in Montana, and 1 in South Africa. There were hundreds of sightings. Eisenhower knew that he had to wrestle and beat the alien problem. He knew that he could not do it by revealing the secret to Congress. Early in 1953, the new president turned to his friend and fellow member of the Council on Foreign Relations, Nelson Rockefeller. Eisenhower and Rockefeller began planning the secret structure of Alien Task Supervision, which was to become a reality within 1 year. The idea for MJ-12 or MJ-12 was thus born. It was Nelson's uncle, Winthrop Aldrich, who had been crucial in convincing Eisenhower to run for president. The whole Rockefeller family, and with them the Rockefeller empire, had solidly backed Ike. Eisenhower belonged heart and soul to the Council on Foreign Relations and the Rockefeller family. Asking Rockefeller for help with the alien problem was to be the biggest mistake Eisenhower ever made for the future of the United States and maybe for humanity. Within 1 week of Eisenhower's election, he had appointed Nelson Rockefeller chairman of a presidential advisory committee on government organization. Rockefeller was responsible for planning the reorganization of the government, something he had dreamed of for many years. New Deal programs went into one single cabinet position called the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. When the Congress approved the new cabinet position in April 1953, Nelson was named to the post of Undersecretary to Ovida Culp Hobby. In 1953, astronomers discovered large objects in space which were tracked moving toward the Earth. It was first believed that they were asteroids. Later evidence proved the objects could only be spaceships. Project Sigma intercepted alien radio communications. When the objects reached the Earth, they took up a very high geosynchronous geosynchro synchronous geosynchronous geosynchronous orbit around the equator. There were several huge ships, and their actual intent was unknown. Project Sigma and a new project, Plato, through radio communications using the computer binary language, were able to arrange a landing that resulted in face-to-face contact with alien beings from another planet. This landing took place in the desert. The movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a fictionalized version of the actual events. Project Plato was tasked with establishing diplomatic relations with this race of space aliens. A hostage was left with us as a pledge that they would return and formalize a treaty. In the meantime, a race of humanoid aliens landed at Homestead Air Force Base in Florida and successfully communicated with the U.S. government. This group warned us against the race orbiting the equator and offered to help us with our spiritual development. They demanded that we dismantle and destroy our nuclear weapons as the major condition. They refused to exchange technology citing that we were spiritually unable to handle the technology we already possessed. These overtures were rejected on the grounds that it would be foolish to disarm in the face of such an uncertain future. There was no track record to read from. It may have been an unfortunate decision. A third landing at Morocco, now Edwards Air Force Base, took place in 1954. The base was closed for 3 days, and no one was allowed to enter or leave during that time. The historical event had been planned in advance. Details of a treaty had been argued upon. Eisenhower arranged to be in Palm Springs on vacation. On the appointed day, the president was spirited to the base. The excuse was given to the press that he was visiting a dentist. Witnesses to the event have stated that 3 UFOs flew over the base and then landed. Anti Anti-aircraft batteries were undergoing live fire training, and the startled personnel actually fired at the crafts as they passed overhead. Luckily, the shells missed and no one was injured. President Eisenhower met with the aliens on February 20th, 1954, and a formal treaty between the alien nation and the United States of America was signed. We then received our first alien ambassador from outer space. He was the hostage that had been left at the first landing in the desert. His name and title was His Omnipotent Highness Krill, pronounced Krill or Krill. In the American tradition of disdain for royal titles, he was secretly called Original Hostage Krill or Krill. Shortly after this meeting, President Eisenhower suffered a heart attack. 4 others present at the meeting were Franklin Allen of the Hearst newspaper, Edwin Norris of Brookings Institute, Gerald Light of metaphysical research fame, and Catholic Bishop McIntyre of Los Angeles. Their reaction was judged as a microcosm of what the public reaction might be. Based upon this reaction, it was decided that the public could not be told. Later studies confirmed the decision as sound. An emotionally revealing letter written by Gerald Light spells it out in chilling detail. My dear friend, I have just returned from Morocco. The report is true, devastatingly true. I made the journey in company with Franklin Allen of the Hearst Papers and Edwin Norris of the Brookings Institute, Truman's erstwhile financial advisor, and Bishop McIntyre of LA. Confidential names for the present, please. When we were allowed to enter the restricted section, after about 6 hours in, which were checked on every possible item, event, institute, and aspect of our personal and public lives, I had the distinct feeling that the world had come to an end with fantastic realism. For I have never seen so many human beings in a state of complete collapse and confusion as they realized that their own world had indeed ended with such finality as to beggar description. The reality of other plane airforms is now and forever removed from the realms of speculation and made a rather painful part in the consciousness of every responsible scientific and political group. During my 2 days visit, I saw 5 separate and distinct types of aircrafts being studied and handled by our Air Force officials with the assistance and permission of the Etherians. I have no words to express my reactions. It has finally happened. It is now a matter of history. President Eisenhower, as you may have already known, was spirited over to Morocco one night during his visit to Palm Springs recently, and it is my conviction that he will ignore the terrific conflict between the various authorities and go directly to the people via radio and television if the impasse continues much longer. From what I could gather, an official statement to the country is being prepared for delivery about the middle of May. We know that no such announcement was ever made. The Silence Control Group won the day. We also know that two more ships, for which we can find no witnesses, either landed sometimes after the three or were already at the base before the three landed. Gerald Light specifically states that 5 ships were present and were undergoing study by the Air Force. His metaphysical experience is evident in that he calls the entities Etherians. Gerald Light capitalized Etherians, calling attention to the fact that these beings might have been viewed as gods by Mr. Light. The alien emblem was known as the Trilateral insignia and was displayed on the craft and worn on the alien uniforms. Both of these landings and the second meeting were filmed. These films exist today. The treaty stated that aliens would not interfere in our affairs and we would not interfere in theirs. We would keep their presence on Earth a secret. They would furnish us with advanced technology and would help us in our technological development. They would not make any treaty with any other Earth nation. They could abduct humans on a limited and periodic basis for the purpose of medical examination and monitoring of our development with the stipulation that the humans would not be harmed, would be returned to the point of abduction, would have no memory of the event, and that the alienation would finish Majesty 12 with a list of all human contacts and abductees on a regular scheduled basis. Hold on, y'all. I had to take a breather. This is so long. This is 2:06. Let me see how far we gotta go. Check. Check. Are you serious? Y'all see this? Let me just keep reading. That ain't helping. Mm. It was agreed that each nation would receive the ambassador of the other for as long as the treaty remained in force. It was further agreed that the alien nation and the United States would exchange 16 personnel with the purpose of learning of each other. The aliens' guests would remain upon Earth. The human guests would travel to the alien point of origin for a specified period of time and then return, at which point a reverse exchange would be made. A reenactment of this event was dramatized in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. A tip-off to who works for whom can be determined by the fact that Dr. J. Allen Hynek served as the technical advisor for the film. I noticed that the top secret report containing the official version of the truth of the alien question, entitled Project Grudge, which I read while in the Navy, was co-authored by Lieutenant Colonel Friend and Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was cited as a CIA asset attached to Project Grudge. Dr. Hynek, the one who debunked many legitimate UFO incidents, when he functioned as the scientific member of the very public Project Blue Book. Dr. Hynek is the main responsible for the infamous "it was only swamp gas" statement. It was agreed that bases would be constructed underground for the use of the alien nation, and that two bases would be constructed for the joint use of the alien nation and United States government. Exchange of technology would take place in the jointly occupied bases. These alien bases would be constructed under Indian reservations in the Four Corners area of Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. Wow. And one would be constructed in an area known as Dreamland. Dreamland was built in the Mojave Desert, near or in a place called Yucca. I cannot remember if it was Yucca Valley, Yucca Flat, or Yucca Proving Ground, but Yucca Valley is what I always seem to want to say. More NFO sightings and incidents occur in the Mojave Desert of California than any other place in the world. So many, in fact, that no one ever bothers to make reports. Anyone who ventures into the desert to talk to the residents will be astounded by the frequency of activity and with the degree of acceptance demonstrated by those who have come to regard UFOs as normal. All alien areas are under complete control of the Naval Department, according to the documents that I have read. All personnel who work in these complexes receive their checks from the Navy through a subcontractor. The checks never make reference to the government or the Navy. Construction of the bases began immediately, but progress was slow. Large amounts of money were made available in 1957. Work continued on the Yellow Book. Project Red Light was formed, and experimentation in test flying alien aircraft was begun in earnest. A super top secret facility was built at Groom Lake in Nevada in the midst of the weapons test range. It was codenamed Area 51. The installation was placed under the Department of the Naval, and all personnel required a Q clearance as well as executive presidential called majestic approval. This is ironic due to the fact that the President of the United States does not have clearance to visit the site. The alien base and exchange of technology actually took place in an area codenamed Dreamland above ground, and the underground portion was dubbed the dark side of the moon. According to the documentation that I have read, at least 600 aliens being actually resided full time at this site. along with an unknown number of scientists and CIA personnel. Due to the fear of implantation, only certain people were allowed to interface with the alien beings, and those personnel were and are watched and monitored continuously. The Army was tasked to form a super secret organization, to furnish security for the alien task projects. This organization became the National Reconnaissance 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 Organization based at Fort Carson, Colorado. The specific terms trained to secure the projects, the specific teams trained to secure the projects were called Delta. Lieutenant Colonel James Bogritz was a Delta Force commander. A second project codenamed Snowbird was promulgated to explain away any sightings of the red light crafts as being Air Force experiments. The Snowbird crafts were manufactured using conventional technology and were flown for the press on several occasions. Project Snowbird was also used to debunk legitimate public sightings of alien craft UFOs to the public, ACs to those in the know. Project Snowbird was very successful, and reports from the public declined steadily until recent years. A multi-million-dollar secret fund was organized and kept by the military office of the White House. This fund was used to build over 75 deep underground facilities. Presidents who asked were told the fund was used to build deep underground shelters for the president in case of war. Only a few were built for the president. Millions of dollars were funneled through this office to Majesty 12 and then out to the contractors. It was used to build top secret alien bases as well as top secret deep underground military bases, and the facilities promulgated by Alternative 2 throughout the nation. President Johnson used this fund to build a movie theater and pave the road on his ranch. He had no idea of its true purpose. The secret White House Underground Construction Fund was set up in 1957. By President Eisenhower. The funding was obtained from Congress under the guise of construction and maintenance of secret sites where the president could be taken in case of military attack. The presidential emergency sites. The sites are literally holes in the ground, deep enough to withstand a nuclear blast, and are outfitted with state-of-the-art communications equipment. To date, there are more than 75 sites spread around the country, which were built using money from this fund. The Atomic Energy Commission has built at least an additional 22 underground sites since the chapter on Mount Weather. The location and everything to do with these sites were and are considered and treated as top secret. The money was and is in control of the military office of the White House, and was and is laundered through so circuitous a web that even the most knowledgeable spy or accountant cannot follow it. As of 1980, only a few at the beginning and end of this web knew what the money was for. At the beginning were Representative George Mahone of Texas, the chairman of chairman of the House Appropriations Committee and of its Defense Subcommittee, and Representative Robert Sykes of Florida, chairman of the House Appropriations Military Construction Subcommittee. Today it is rumored that House Speaker Jim Wright controlled the money in Congress and that a power struggle removed him. At the end of the line were the President Majesty 12 and the Director of the Military Office and a commander at the Washington Naval Yard. The money was authorized by the Appropriations Committee, who allocated it to the Department of Defense as a top secret item in the Army construction program. The Army, however, could not spend it, and in fact did not even know what it was for. Authorization to spend the money was in reality given to the Navy. The money was channeled to the Chesapeake Division of the Navy Engineers, who did not know what it was for either. Not even the commanding officer, who was an admiral, knew what the fund was to be used for. Only one man, a Navy commander, who was assigned to the Chesapeake Division, but in reality was responsible only to the military office of the White House, knew of the actual purpose, amount, and ultimate destination of the top secret money. The total secrecy surrounding the fund meant that almost every trace of it could be made to disappear by the very few people who controlled it. There has never been, and most likely never will be, an audit of this secret money. Large amounts of money were transferred from the top secret fund to a location at Palm Beach, Florida that belongs to the Coast Guard called Peanut Island. The island is adjacent to a property which was owned by Joseph Kennedy. The money was said to have been used for landscaping and general beautification. Some time ago, a TV news special on the Kennedy assassination told of a Coast Guard officer transferring money in a briefcase to a Kennedy employee across this property line. Could this have been a secret payment to the Kennedy family for the loss of their son John F. Kennedy? The payments continued through the year 1967 and then stopped. The total amount transferred is unknown, and the actual use of the money is unknown. Meanwhile, Nelson Rockefeller changed positions again. This time he was to take C.D. Jackson's old position, which had been called the Special Assistant for Psychological Strategy. With Nelson's appointment, the name was changed to the Special Assistant for Cold War Strategy. This position would evolve over the years into the same position Henry Kissinger was ultimately to hold under President Nixon. Officially, he was to give advice and assistance in the development of increased understanding and cooperation amongst all peoples. The official description was a smokescreen, for secretly he was the presidential coordinator for the intelligence community. In his new post, Rockefeller reported directly and solely to the president. He attended meetings of the Cabinet, the Council on Foreign Economic Policy, and the National Security Council, which was the highest policy-making body in the government. Nelson Rockefeller was also given a second important job as the head of the secret unit called the Planning Coordination Group, which was formed under NSC 5412/1 in March 1955. The group consisted of different ad hoc members, depending on the subject of the agenda. The basic members were Rockefeller, a representative of the Rockefeller, a representative of the Department of Defense, a representative of the Department of State, and the Director of Central Intelligence. It was soon called the 5412 Committee or the Special Group. NSC 5412/1 established a rule that covert operations were subject to approval by an executive committee, whereas in the past these operations were initiated solely on the authority of the Director of Central Intelligence by secret executive memorandum NSC 5510. Eisenhower had preceded NSC 5412/1 to establish a permanent committee, not ad hoc, to be known as Majesty 12 or MJ12, to oversee and conduct all covert activities concerned with the alien question. NSC 5412/1 was created to explain the purpose of these meetings when Congress and the press became curious. Majesty 12 was made up of Nelson Rockefeller, Director of Central Intelligence, Allen Welsh Dulles, Secretary of State, John Foster Dulles, Secretary of Defense, Charles E. Wilson, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Arthur W. Radford, Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, J. Edgar Hoover, 6 men from the Executive Committee of the Council on Foreign Relations, known as the Wise Men, 6 men from the Executive Committee of the Jason Group, and Dr. Edward Teller. The Jason Group is a secret scientific group formed during the Manhattan Project and administered by the Mitri Corporation. The inner core of the Council on Foreign Relations recruits its members from the Skull and Bones and the Scroll and Key Societies of Harvard and Yale. The Wise Men are key members of the Council on Foreign Relations and also members of a secret order of the quest known as the Jason Society. And y'all, I'm moving around. I'm finna pause. I'm gonna press mute. I need some water, but I gotta start working out. And so I'm just walking in place. Give me a moment. Okay. There were 19 members of the Majesty 12. The first rule of Majesty 12 was that no order could be given and no action could be taken without a majority vote of 12 in favor. Thus, Majority 12. Orders issued by Majesty 12 became known as Majority 12 Directives. This group was made up over the years of the top officers and directors of the Council on Foreign Relations, and later the Trilateral Commission. Gordon Dean, George Bush, and Zbigniew Brzezinski were among them. The most important and influential of the wise men were John and Dean. Were John McCloy, Robert Levitt, Averell Harriman, Charles Bolin, George Kennan, and Dean Acheson. Their policies were to last well into a decade of the 70s. It is significant that President Eisenhower, as well as the first 6 Majesty 12 members from the government, were also members of the Council on Foreign Relations. This gave control of the most secret and powerful group in the government to a special interest club that was itself controlled by the Illuminati. Though thorough researchers will soon discover that not all of the wise men attended Harvard or Yale, and not all of them were chosen for Skull and Bones or Scroll and Key membership during their college years. You will be able to quickly clear up the mystery by obtaining the book The Wise Men by Walter Isaacson and Evan Thomas, Simon and Schuster, New York. Under illustration number 9 in the center of the book, you will find the caption, Love it. Let me scroll up. Love it with the Yale unit above, far right, and on the beach. His initiation in the Skull and Bones his initiation into the Skull and Bones came at an air base near Dunkirk. I have found that members were chosen on an ongoing basis by invitation based upon merit post-college and were not confined to Harvard or Yale attendees only. Because of this fact, a complete list of Skull and Bone members can never be compiled from the catalogs or addresses of the college segment of the Russell Trust, also known as the Brotherhood of Death or Skull and Bones. Now you know why it has been impossible to pinpoint the membership, either by number or by name. I believe that the answer lies hidden in the CFR files, if files exist. A chosen few were later initiated into the secret branch of the Order of the Quest, known as the Jason Society. They are all members of the Council on Foreign Relations, and at that time were known as the Eastern Establishment. This should give you a clue to the far-reaching and serious nature of these most secret college societies. The society is alive and well today, but now includes members of the Trilateral Commission as well. The Trilateralists existed secretly before 1973. The name of the Trilateral Commission was taken from the alien flag known as Trilateral insignia. Majesty 12 was to survive right up to the present day. Under Eisenhower, however, and Kennedy, it was erroneously called the 5412 Committee, or more correctly, the Special Group. In the Johnson administration, it became the 303 Committee because of the name 5412 had been compromised in the book The Secret Government. Actually, NSC 5412/1 was leaked to the author to hide the existence of NSC 5410. Under Nixon, Ford, and Carter, it was called the 40 Committee, and under Reagan, it became the PI-40 Committee. Over all those years, only the name changed. By 1955, it became obvious that the aliens had deceived Eisenhower and had broken the treaty. Mutilated humans were being found, along with mutilated animals across the United States. It was suspected that the aliens were not submitting a complete list of human contacts and abductees to Majesty 12, and it was suspected that not all abductees had been returned. The Soviet Union was suspected of interacting with them, and this proved to be true. The aliens stated that they had been and were then manipulating masses of people through secret societies, witchcraft, magic, the occult, and religion. You must understand that this claim could also be a manipulation. After several Air Force combat air engagement with alien craft, it also became apparent that our weapons were no match against them. In November 1955, NSC 5412/2 was issued, establishing a study committee to explore all factors which are involved in the making and implementing of foreign policy in the nuclear age. This was only a blanket of snow that covered the real subject of study, the alien question. I'm going to be scrolling. By secret executive memorandum NSC 5511 in 1954, President Eisenhower had commissioned the study group to examine all the facts, evidence, lies, and deception and discover the truth of the alien question. NSC 5412/2 was only a cover that had become necessary when the press began inquiring as to the purpose of regular meetings of such important men. The first meetings began in 1954 and were called the Quantico Meetings because they met at the Quantico Marine Base. The study group was made up of solely 35 members of the Council on Foreign Relations. Secret study group, Dr. Edward Teller was invited to participate. Dr. Zbigniew Brzezinski was the study director for the first 18 months. Dr. Henry Kissinger was chosen as the group's study director for the second 18 months, beginning in November 1955. Nelson Rockefeller was a frequent visitor during the study. The study group members: Gordon Dean, chairman; Dr. Henry Kissinger, study director; Dr. Zbigniew Brzezinski, study director; Dr. Edward Teller, Frank Ausubel, Major General Richard C. Lindsay, Hamilton Fish Armstrong, Hanson W. Baldwin, Major General James McCormick Jr., Lord V. Berkner, Robert R. Bowie, Frank C. Nash, McGeorge Bundy, Paul H. Nitz, William A. M. Burden, Charles P. Noyes, John C. Campbell, Frank Pace Jr., Thomas K. Finletter, James A. Perkins, George S. Franklin Jr., Don K. Price, one Rabbi, or second Rabbi, David Rockefeller, Roswell L. Kilpatrick, Oscar M. Rubhausen, N. E. Hollaby, Lieutenant General James M. Gavin, General Walter Bedell Smith, Carol P. Haskins, Henry D. Wolf Smith, James T. Hill, Jr., Shields Warren, Joseph E. Johnson, Carroll L. Wilson, Mervyn J. Kelly, Arnold Wolfers. The second phase meetings were also held at the Marine base at Quantico, Virginia, and the group became known as Quantico 2. Nelson Rockefeller built a retreat somewhere in Maryland for Majesty 12 and the study committee. It could only be reached by air. In this manner, they could meet away from the public scrutiny. This secret meeting place is known by the code name the Country Club. Complete living, eating, recreation, library, and meeting facilities exist at the location. The Aspen Institute is not the Country Club. The study group was publicly terminated in the later months of 1956. Henry Kissinger wrote what was officially termed the results in 1957 as Nuclear Weapons and Foreign Policy, published it for the Council on Foreign Relations by Harper and Brothers, New York. This is a lot of reading. In truth, the manuscript had already been 80% written while Kissinger was at Harvard. The study group continued, veiled in secrecy, a clue to the seriousness Kissinger attached to the study can be found in statements by his wife and friends. Many of them stated that Henry would leave home early each morning and return late each night without speaking to anyone or responding to anyone. It seems as if he were in another world, which held no room for outsiders. These statements are very revealing. The revelations of the alien presence and actions during the study must have been a great shock. Henry Kissinger was definitely out of character during this time. He would never again be affected in this manner, no matter the seriousness of any subsequent event. On many occasions, he would work very late into the night after having already put in a full day. This behavior eventually led to a divorce. A major finding of the alien study was that the public could not be told. It was believed that this would most certainly lead to economic collapse of the religious structure, and national panic, which could lead into anarchy. Secrecy thus continued. An offshoot of this finding was that if public could not be told, Congress could not be told. Funding for the projects and research would have to come from outside the government. In the meantime, money was to be obtained from the military budget and from the CIA confidential, non-appropriated funds. Another major finding was that the aliens were using humans and animals for a source of glandular secretions, enzymes, hormonal secretions, blood plasma, and possibly in genetic experiments. The aliens explained these actions as necessary to their survival. They stated that their genetic structure had deteriorated and that they were no longer able to reproduce. They stated that if they were unable to improve their genetic structure, their race would soon cease to exist. We looked upon their explanations with extreme suspicion. Since our weapons were literally useless against the aliens, Majesty 12 decided to continue friendly diplomatic relations until such time as we were given able to develop a technology which would enable us to challenge them on a military basis. Overtures would have to be made to the Soviet Union and other nations to join forces for the survival of humanity. In the meantime, plans were developed to research and construct two weapons systems using conventional and nuclear technology, which would hopefully bring us to parity. The results of the research were projects Joshua and Excalibur. Joshua was a weapon captured from the Germans, which was capable of shattering 4-inch thick armor plate at a range of 2 miles. It used aimed low-frequency sound waves, and it was believed that this weapon would be effective against the alien aircraft and beam weapons. Excalibur was a weapon carried by missile not to rise above 30,000 feet above ground level. AGL not to deviate from designated target more than 50 meters. Able to, hold on. Okay. Excalibur was a weapon carried by missile not to rise above 30,000 feet above ground level. AGL not to deviate from designated target more than 50 meters. Able to penetrate 1,000 meters of tufa, hard-packed soil such as that found in New Mexico. Carry a 1 megaton warhead and intended for use in destroying the aliens in their underground bases. Joshua was developed successfully but never used to my knowledge. Excalibur was not pushed until recent years, and now we are told there is an unprecedented effort to develop this weapon. The public would be told that Excalibur would be needed to take out a Soviet underground command post. We would be needed. We know that is not the truth because one rule of war is that you try not to destroy the leaders. They are needed either to unconditionally surrender or to negotiate terms. Leaders are also needed to ensure peaceful transition of power and the compliance of the populace to all negotiated or dictated terms. The events at Fatima in the early part of the century were scrutinized on the suspicion that it was alien manipulation. An intelligence operation was put into motion to penetrate the secrecy surrounding the event. The United States utilized its Vatican modes and soon obtained the entire Vatican study, which included the prophecy. This prophecy stated that if man did not turn from evil and place himself at the feet of Christ, the planet would self-destruct, and the events described in the book of Revelation would indeed come to pass. The prophecy demanded that Russia be consecrated to the Sacred Heart. It stated that a child would be born who would unite the world with a plan for world peace and a false religion. the people would discern that he was evil and was indeed the Antichrist. World War III would begin in the Middle East with an invasion of Israel by a united Arab nation using conventional weapons, which would culminate in a nuclear holocaust. Most of the life on this planet would suffer horribly and die as a result. The return of Christ would occur shortly thereafter. When the aliens were confronted with this finding, they confirmed that it was true. The aliens explained that they had created us through genetic manipulation in a laboratory. They stated that they had manipulated their human race through religion, Satanism, witchcraft, magic, and the occult. They further explained that they were capable of time travel and that the events would indeed come to pass if the conditions were not met. Later, exploitation of alien technology by the United States and the Soviet Union utilizing time travel in a project named Rainbow confirmed the prophecy. The aliens showed a hologram, which they claimed was the actual crucifixion of Christ. The government filmed the hologram. We did not know whether to believe them. We were using our genuine religions. Were they using our genuine religions to manipulate us, or were they indeed the source of our religions with which they had been manipulating us all along? Or was this the beginning scenario of the genuine end times and the return of Christ, which has been predicted in the Bible? I do not know the answer. The symposium was held in 1957, which was attended by some of the great scientific minds then living. They reached the conclusion that by or shortly after the year 2000, the planet would self-destruct due to increased population and man's exploitation of the environment without any help from God or the aliens. By secret executive order of the President Eisenhower, the adjacent scholars were ordered to study this scenario and make recommendations from their findings. The Jason Society confirmed the findings of the scientists and made 3 recommendations called Alternatives 1, 2, and 3. Excuse me. Alternative 1 was to use nuclear devices to blast holes into the stratosphere from which the heat and pollution could escape into space. They would then change the human cultures from that of exploitation into cultures of environmental protection. Of the 3, this was decided to be the least likely to succeed due to the inherent nature of man and the additional damage the nuclear explosions would themselves create. The existence of a hole in the ozone layer may indicate that Alternative 1 might have been attempted. This, however, is only conjecture. Alternative 2 was to build a vast network of underground cities and tunnels in which a select representation of all cultures and occupations would survive and carry on the human race. The rest of humanity would be left to fend for themselves on the surface of the planet. We know that these facilities have been built and are ready and waiting for the chosen few to be notified. Alternative 3 was to exploit the alien and conventional technology in order for a select few to leave the Earth and establish colonies in outer space. I'm not able to either confirm or deny the existence of a batch of consignments of human slaves, which will be used for the manual labor as a part of the plan. The moon, codenamed Adam, was the object of primary interest, followed by the planet Mars, codenamed Eve. I am now in possession of official NASA photographs of one of the moon bases. I believe that the Mars colony is also a reality. A, as a delaying action, all three alternatives included birth control, sterilization, and the introduction of deadly microbes to control or slow the growth of Earth's population. AIDS is only one result of these plans. It was decided by the elite that since the population must be reduced and controlled, it would be in the best interest of the human race to rid ourselves of the undesirable elements of our society. Specific targeted populations included blacks, Hispanics, and homosexuals. The joint U.S. and Soviet leadership dismissed Alternative 1 but ordered work to begin on Alternative 2 and 3 virtually at the same time. In 1959, the RAND Corporation hosted a deep underground construction symposium symposium. In the symposium report, machines are pictured and described which could bore a tunnel 45 feet in diameter at the rate of 5 feet per hour in 1959. It also displays pictures of huge tunnels and underground vaults containing what appear to be complex facilities and possible even cities. It appears that the previous 5 years of all-out underground construction had made significant progress by that time. The ruling powers decided that one means of funding the alien-connected and other black projects was to corner the illegal drug market. The English and French had established a historical precedent when they exploited the opium trade in the Far East and used it to fill their coffers and gain a solid foothold in China and Vietnam, respectively. A young, ambitious member of the Council on Foreign Relations was approached. His name is George Bush, who at the time was the president and CEO of the offshore division of Zapata Oil, based in Texas. Zapata Oil was experimenting with the new technology of offshore drilling. It was correctly thought that the drugs could be shipped from South America to the offshore platforms by fishing boat to be taken from there to shore by the normal transportation used for supplies and personnel. By this method, no customs or law enforcement agency would subject the cargo to search. George Bush agreed to help and organize the operation in conjunction with the CIA. The plan worked better than anyone had dreamed. It has since expanded worldwide. Mm. There are now many other methods of bringing the illegal drugs into the country. It must always be remembered that George Bush began the sale of drugs to our children. The CIA now controls most of the world's illegal drug markets. The official space program was boosted by the President Kennedy in his inaugural address when he mandated that the United States put a man on the moon before the end of the decade. Although innocent in its conception, this mandate enabled those in charge to funnel vast amounts of money into black projects and conceal the real space program from the American people. A similar program in the Soviet Union served the same purpose. In fact, a joint alien United States and Soviet Union based existed on the moon at the very moment Kennedy spoke the words. On May 12th, on May 22nd, 1962, a space probe landed on Mars and confirmed the existence of an environment which could support life. Not long afterward, the construction of a colony on the planet Mars began in earnest. Today, I believe a colony exists on Mars, populated by specially selected people from different cultures and occupations taken from all over the earth. A public charade of antagonism between the Soviet Union and the United States has been maintained over all these years in order to fund projects in the name of national defense, when in fact we are the closest allies. At some point, President Kennedy discovered discovered portions of the truth concerning the drugs and aliens. He issued an ultimatum in 1963 to Majesty 12. President Kennedy assured them that if they did not clean up the drug problem, he would. He informed Majesty 12 that he intended to reveal the presence of aliens to the American people within the following year and ordered a plan developed to implement his decision. President Kennedy was not a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and knew nothing of Alternative 2 or Alternative 3, although some researchers claim JFK was a member of the CFR. I can find no legitimate list with his name upon it. Internationally, the operations were supervised by the Bilderberg Elite Committee, known as the Policy Committee. In the United States, they were supervised by the Executive Committee of the CFR, and in the Soviet Union by its sister organization. President Kennedy's decision struck fear into the hearts of those in charge. His assassination was ordered by the Policy Committee, and the order was carried out by agents in Dallas. President John F. Kennedy was murdered by the Secret Service agent who drove his car in the motorcade, and the act is plainly visible in the Zapruder film. Watch the driver and not Kennedy when you view the film. All of the witnesses who were close enough to the car to see William Greer shoot Kennedy were themselves all murdered within 2 years of the event. The Warren Commission was a farce, and the Council on Foreign Relations members made up the majority of its panel. They succeeded in snowing the American people. Many other patriots who attempted to reveal the alien secret have also been murdered throughout the intervening years. At the present time, over 200 material witnesses or people actually involved with the assassination are dead. The odds against this happening are so high that no one has been able to calculate them. The odds against the first 18 to die within the first 2 years of the assassination were calculated at 100,000 trillion to 1. You can order a copy of the film by sending $30 plus $4 postage and handling to William Cooper, 19744 Beach Boulevard, Suite 301, Huntington Beach, California, 92648. In December 1988, I had a phone conversation during which I had told John Lear what I had seen in the Navy concerning the Kennedy assassination. I told him that the top secret document stated that the act was plainly visible in a film withheld from the public. I told John that I had been looking for a film that showed Greer shoot JFK for 16 years, but had not found one. I was shocked and very pleasantly surprised when John asked me, "Would you like to see it?" I, of course, replied with an affirmative, and John invited Annie and me to his home in Las Vegas. We spent 4 days with John. He not only showed me the film, he gave me a copy. I showed the video whenever I spoke to a group of people. The film is titled Dallas Revisited. John told me that he obtained it from a CIA acquaintance whom he was not at liberty to name. I later found out the originator of that version of the Zapruder film was Lars Hansen. John Lear was showing the film at every meeting that he conducted. Shortly after Lear gave me a copy of the film, Lars Hansen called and asked if he could drop by to meet with me at my home in Fullerton, California. I told him he could and asked him to bring a better copy of the film if he had one. Lars said that he would. He stated that he would also bring a film on a man named Bo Gritz, of whom I had never heard. Mr. Hansen informed me that he had made the video for Bo Gritz and John Lear and that both were using it in their lectures. I found out much later that Bo Gritz was selling the tape for $10 per copy. Lars came to the house, brought films on videotape, and we spoke for about an hour. His main purpose was to tell me that he wanted me to expose people to the film, but did not want me to connect him to the film in any manner. I agreed not to divulge the source, and I kept my word. I began to use the tape in my lectures. When I found out that Bo Gritz was making it available, I bowed to public pressure and also made it available. Sometime later, I read an LA-based newsletter, forgot the name, in which Lars Hansen stated that he did not know that I had the film and did not know that I was showing it at lectures. Hansen stated in the newsletter that he was at my Hollywood High lecture on November 5th, 1989, and that he tried to protest my use of it during the question and answer period, but that he never had a chance to be recognized. We videotaped that event, and at the end I asked anyone with questions or comments to walk to the microphone that we had placed in the aisle. I have examined every inch of the videotape, and Lars Hansen never got up from his seat, nor did he ever raise his hand, nor did he attempt in any way to be recognized. Lars later called me again and asked me not to use his voice on the tape, his voice where he says, with no hesitation or qualification whatsoever, as he narrates the videotape. The driver of the car turns with his left arm over his right shoulder with a pistol and fires. You see the 45 caliber nickel-plated automatic weapon in his left hand. He's firing over his right shoulder. You see it in relief. You see his head pointing backwards towards the president. In this enhanced close-up, you see the impact of the bullet upon the president. The force of the shot drives him violently backwards against the back of the seat. You see Mrs. Kennedy react in horror. Then later in the film, Lars makes this statement. You can clearly see the driver's head turning around and his arm and the weapon extending into view over his right shoulder. I agreed not to use it. I agreed not to use his voice in. I agreed not to use his voice. In subsequent lectures, I showed the tape with no audio. As it turned out, people were able to see it better with no narration. It is important that you understand the above because in the late summer 1990, after I had been showing the film for over a year and a half, Lars Hansen began to show up on radio proclaiming that Greer, the driver, did not shoot the president. Lars Hansen showed up at my fall 1990 Beverly Hills School lecture and disrupted the lecture, yelling out taunts and otherwise making an ass out of himself. When the lecture ended, he accosted people in the lobby and, along with David Lifton, attempted to convince members of the audience that they didn't really see Greer shoot Kennedy. To their credit, most of the audience told Hansen and Lifton to stick it where the sun don't shine. Once people see it with their own eyes, they can no longer be fooled. Hansen, Lifton, Groden, and other agents of the government are running out of time. Americans are catching on to the scam. I shudder to think what will happen to these people when Americans finally get angry. Do not forget that Lear informed me that his source for the film was a CIA agent who later turned out to be Lars Hansen. Hansen later claimed that I violated his copyright. He had no copyright. Hansen himself violated someone's copyright by making the film and giving it to me. Lear and Grits. I didn't and still don't give a damn about copyright on this particular film. If I did, no one would ever know who really killed our president. Bo Grits stated on radio that he felt exactly the same way. Hansen never attacked Lear or Grits, who still show the tape, and Grits still makes it available. I wonder why. Are Lear, Hansen, and Grits working together? Robert Groden then entered the picture. He publicly challenged me to appear and debate him. He claimed that he had a copy of the Zapruder film showing that Greer never took his hands off the wheel of the car. Groden is an active secret government agent whose job is to confuse the public and perpetuate a cover-up. I called Bob Groden and accepted his challenge. I invited him to appear with me at the Beverly Hills High School and show his film. I would show my film. The audience would decide. He refused. He refused because he knows what I know, that the audience would boo him out of town. Groden knows that Chris shot Kennedy because he is a part of the cover-up. Bob Groden is the same Bob Groden who claims to be the world's foremost independent photo interpretation expert. Bob Groden has no photographic education whatsoever. He has never worked with photography. Bob Groden has never been a photographic interpreter in his life. He has been lying to the public about his credentials for all these years, and no one even checked. Not even Congress checked his credentials when they hired him. Do you really think that that was an accident? I have a degree in photography. Bob Groden is the same Bob Groden who was hired by the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1976. He is the same Bob Groden who blatantly lied to the committee and told them that the driver, William Greer, never took his hands off the wheel. His job is to write books and confuse you. His job is to maintain a position that the government lied and that there was a conspiracy. His job is also to prevent you from knowing the truth about who killed the president. You cannot welcome the New World Order if you have faith in your government. You will have faith in your government if you learn that Greer killed Kennedy on orders of the Illuminati and that it had nothing to do with the legal constitutional government. Did you know that the man who was in charge of the Secret Service at the time of the assassination became the man in charge of security for the Rockefeller family upon his retirement? Well, now you know. You should also know that Bob Groden is a friend of Leslie Watkins, and it is Bob Groden's name that Watkins uses as the alias of the astronaut cited in Alternative 003. Did you know that when Ricky White made appearances on talk radio across the country to say that his father killed Kennedy, that Bob Groden accompanied him? Did you know that every time a caller asked Ricky White a question, Groden answered for him? Do you really believe that is a coincidence? Ricky White's father did not kill Kennedy. For years I have been telling people in audiences about discrepancies between the doctor's reports in Dallas and the autopsy report made at Bethesda Naval Hospital. I have revealed that the wounds were tampered with and changed. I have been telling the world that the body was removed from its casket aboard the plane and was taken out the galley door and onto a Marine helicopter, and that the body arrived at Bethesda Naval Hospital a full 30 minutes before the empty official casket. I have stated that the president's brain had disappeared and told why it had disappeared. All of a sudden, David Lifton appeared on radio and TV in 1990 telling the world that he had new evidence that he had discovered Every bit of his new evidence was exactly what I had been telling people for years. It was the same information that I had told Bob Swan in 1972. Lifton showed up at my lecture at Beverly Hills High School after making a scene at the box office because he had to pay. Lifton accosted anyone who ventured into the lobby, and along with Lars Hansen, attempted to convince them that they did not see Greer shoot Kennedy. Legitimate people would never have resorted to such disgraceful and discrediting behavior. My testimony and the public's outrage after seeing the murder of President Kennedy with their own eyes has seriously damaged the cover-up. The behavior of Groden, Lifton, and Hansen reveals the degree of damage. The public can now see without any doubt that they are either part of the cover-up or that they are totally incompetent researchers in the case of Groden, a barefaced liar who may have committed treason. In the middle of all this, Hard Copy TV magazine called me and wanted to see the film. I showed them the film and they were shocked, excited, and wanted the exclusive. I gave it to them but told them that I doubted that it would ever get on the air. A date was arranged to film an episode for airing, but just before we were scheduled to go on camera, an NBC executive called the Los Angeles studios of Hard Copy and told them not to air the film. I tried to find out the name of the executive, but no luck. That was the end of that. The producer that had tried to air my story and the Kennedy film is no longer with Hard Copy. Her name is Bubs Harper. Okay. I was approached by another producer, I don't remember his name, from Inside Edition, another TV magazine, who told me that Americans needed to see the film. I agreed to be on the show, but I told him the same thing, that I did not believe it would ever air. A week later, I was listening to David Lifton on a radio talk show. Someone called in and asked David if he knew who I was, and David Lifton said, "I know who he is, and we have a surprise for Mr. Cooper. We're going to put him away for good on a national TV show. We're going to get a full accounting from that guy." I had someone to call the producer and counsel because he had lied on me. Because he had lied to me. He pleaded to have me on. I relayed through this intermediary that I would appear only if I could have editorial control to make sure that he did not edit the segment to ridicule the film. He refused, and then I knew his intention all along had been to discredit me. When the segment aired, Lars Hansen was used as a stand-in in my place. Hansen, the man who had been attacking me, stating that Greer had not fired at Kennedy, was now on TV stating that Greer killed Kennedy. The reason became obvious as they had Bob Groden, on the next segment. Groden ridiculed and debunked Hansen on the film. They had intended to do a hatchet job on me, but when I counseled they could attack the film only with Hansen taking my place. It had every earmark of an agency operation. It didn't work. I discovered the next ploy when on the radio, Groden stated that he would soon finally release the video of his so-called pristine copy of the Zapruder film, Overexposed, to bring out detail in the shadows. Overexposure would completely wash out Greer's arm and the gun, which are both in full sunlight, and have the effect of rendering both invisible to the viewer. I hope that people are not as stupid as Groden thinks they are. I will debate anyone at any time as long as it's in front of a live audience and nothing is edited. I have seen what a film editor can do to make people seem to say and do things that were never said or done. During the United States initial space exploration and the moon landings, every launch was accompanied by alien craft. On November 20th, 1990, Los Angeles TV channel 2 announced that a separate red glowing round-shaped object accompanied the space shuttle Atlantis on its latest classified military mission. That was the first public admission. A moon-based Luna was photographed by the lunar orbiter and filmed by the Apollo astronauts. Domes, spires, tall round structures which look like silos, huge T-shaped mining vehicles that left stitch-like tracks in the lunar surface, and extremely large, as well as small alien craft appeared in the official NASA photographs. It is a joint United States and Soviet base. The space program is a farce and an unbelievable waste of money. Alternative 3 is a reality. It is not science fiction. The Apollo astronauts were severely shaken by this experience, and their lives' subsequent statements reflect the depth of the revelation and the effect of the muzzle order which followed. They were ordered to remain silent or to suffer the extreme penalty, death, which was termed expediency. One astronaut actually did talk to the British producers of the TV expos Alternative 003. It was aired on the documentary non-fiction program named Science Report, confirming many of the allegations. In the book Alternative 003, the pseudonym Bob Groden was used in place of the astronaut's identity. The real Bob Groden is a friend of Leslie Watkins and is a part of the Kennedy assassination cover-up. It was also stated that the astronaut committed suicide in 1978. This cannot be validated by any source, and I believe that several so-called facts in the book are really disinformation. I firmly believe that this disinformation is a result of pressure put upon authors and is meant to nullify the effect upon the populace of the British TV expose Alternative 003. The headquarters of the international conspiracy is in Geneva, Switzerland. The ruling body is made up of 3 committees consisting of 13 members each, and all 3 together comprise the 39 members of the executive committee of the body known as the Bilderberg Group. The most important and powerful of the 3 committees is the Policy Committee. It is more than interesting to note that the United States had 13 original colonies and 39 delegates from those colonies signed the Constitution after it was written and adopted in the first Constitutional Convention. Do you believe that this is a coincidence? Policy committee meetings are held on a nuclear submarine beneath the polar ice cap. A Soviet sub and an American sub join at an airlock, and the meeting is convened. The secrecy is such that this was the only method which would ensure that the meetings could not be bugged. I can say that the book of Alternative 003 is at least 70% true from my own knowledge and the knowledge of my sources. I believe that the disinformation was an attempt to compromise the British TV expos with information that could be proven false, just as the Eisenhower briefing document, which was released here in the United States under the contingency plan, Majestic 12, can also be proven false. Since our interaction with the aliens began, we have come into possession of technology beyond our wildest dreams. We currently have and fly atomic powered anti-gravity type craft in Nevada. Our pilots have made interplanetary voyages in the craft and have been to the moon, Mars, and other planets. We have been lied to about the true nature of the moon. the planets Mars and Venus, and the real state of technology that we possess today at this very moment. There are areas on the moon where plant life grows and even changes color with the seasons. This seasonal effect is because the moon does not, as a claim, always present the exact same side to the Earth or the Sun. The moon has several man-made lakes and ponds upon its surface, and clouds have been observed and filmed in its atmosphere. It possesses a gravitational field, and a man can walk upon its surface without a spacesuit, breathing from an oxygen bottle after undergoing decompression, the same as any deep sea diver. I have the official NASA photographs. Some of them were published in the books we discovered, Alien Bases on the Moon by Fred Steckling, and Someone Else is on the Moon. In 1969, a confrontation broke out between the Soviets and Americans at the lunar base. The Soviets attempted to take control of the base and held American scientists and personnel hostage. We were able to restore order, but not before 66 people were killed. The Soviets were suspended from the program for a period of 2 years. A reconciliation eventually took place, and once again we began to interact. Today the alliance continues. The Archuleta Mesa underground base confrontation scenario is pure disinformation without to confuse the issue. I knew that in a confrontation I knew that a confrontation had taken place but could not remember the details. John Lear had convinced me that aliens and Delta forces had fought at Archuleta base. The New World Order must have an enemy from outer space. Later, when I used regressive hypnosis to improve my memory, the true facts emerged. To my knowledge, the only hostility between aliens and humans was provoked by the U.S. military between aliens and humans was provoked by the U.S. military when they were ordered to shoot down UFOs in order to capture technology. John Lear also says that we invented AIDS in order to kill blood-sucking aliens and that we are only containers for souls. This is hogwash. It is a clear vote for the aliens do not exist theory. When the Watergate scandal broke, President Nixon was confident that he could not be impeached. Majesty 12 had a different agenda. Nixon was ordered to resign. The Intelligence Committee rightfully concluding that an impeachment trial would open up files and bear the secrets to the public eye. He refused. The first military coup ever to take place in the United States was carried out. The Joint Chiefs of Staff sent a top-secret message to the commanders of all the U.S. armed forces throughout the world. It stated, upon receipt of this message, you will no longer carry out any orders from the White House. Acknowledge receipt. This message was sent a full 5 days before Nixon conceded and announced publicly that he would resign. I saw the message. When I asked my commanding officer what he would do, as obviously the order violated the Constitution, I was told, I guess I will wait to see if any orders come from the White House, and then I will decide. I did not see any communication from the White House, but that does not mean that none was sent. I have confirmation from 3 additional sources, all ex-military who have wrote or called to state that they saw the exact same order. These people are Randall Terpstra, ex-Navy, David Race, ex-Air Force, and Donald Campbell, ex-Navy. The transcript of a taped phone conversation between the author and Mr. Terpstra is presented as Chapter 11 of this book, and the signed statements of others can be found in the appendix. During all the years that this has been happening, the Congress and the American people have seemed to know instinctively that something was not right when the Watergate scandal surfaced. They jumped on the bandwagon, and everyone thought that the agencies would be cleaned out. President Ford organized the Rockefeller Commission to do the job. His real purpose was to head off Congress and keep the cover-up going. Nelson Rockefeller, who had headed the commission investigating the Intelligence Committee, was a member of the Council of Foreign Relations and the one who helped Eisenhower build the Magic 12 proper structure. Rockefeller uncovered only enough to keep the hounds at bay. He threw to Congress a few bones, and the cover-up rolled merrily along as always. Later, Senator Church would conduct the famous Church hearings. He also was a prominent member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and he merely repeated the Rockefeller Act. Again, the cover-up prevailed when the Iran-Contra affair emerged. We thought this time it had to come gushing out. Wrong again, despite the mountains of documents pointing to drug smuggling and other hidden monsters, the cover-up sailed on. The Congress even seemed to go out of its way to duck the real issues. As mentioned earlier, one of the most serious facts uncovered is that North was involved in preparing a plan to suspend the Constitution of the United States of America. When Congressman Jack Brooks of Texas attempted to probe the issue, he was silenced by the committee chairman. Could it be that Congress knows the whole thing and won't touch it? Are they among the select who have been picked for the Mars colony when the Earth begins to destruct, if the Earth is going to destruct? I cannot even begin to outline the entire financial empire controlled by the CIA, the NSA, and the Council on Foreign Relations, which in turn control and launder money from drugs and other intelligence community proprietary ventures. But I can give you a beginning. The amount of money is beyond anything you can imagine and is hidden in a vast network of banks and holding companies. You should first begin to look at the J. Henry Schroeder Banking Corporation, the Schroeder Trust Company, Schroeder's Ltd, London, Helberg Wag Holdings Ltd, J. Henry Schroeder Wagon Company Ltd, Schroeder Gerbruder and Company, Germany, Schroeder Munchmeyer Gangster and Company, Castle Bank, and its holding companies, the Asian Development Bank and the Nugan Hand Octopus of Banks and Holdings Company. A contingency plan was formulated by Majesty 12 to throw everyone off the trail. Should they come close to the truth, the plan was known as the Majestic 12. It was implemented with the release by Moore, Shandera, and Friedman of the purported Eisenhower briefing document. The document is a fraud because it is numbered 092447, a number which does not exist and will not exist for quite a long time at the present rate. Truman wrote executive orders in the 9,000 range. Eisenhower's were in the 10,000 range. Ford was up to the 11,000 bracket, and Reagan only reached into the 12,000s. Executive orders are numbered consecutively no matter who occupies the White House for reasons of continuity, record keeping, and to prevent confusion. This red herring was thrown to the entire research community off the trail for several years and has resulted in the wasted expenditure of money looking for information which does not exist. The Washington, D.C. based Fund for UFO Research, headed by Bruce Maccabee, has committed what I believe to be criminal fraud in connection with the Eisenhower briefing document. Stanton Friedman and the research team of Moore, Shadera and Friedman Maccabee solicited funds from people promising to use those funds to investigate Shandera's and Friedman's claims and prove the Eisenhower briefing document to be genuine or fake. Instead, he gave the entire 16,000 to document to be okay. Instead, he gave the entire 16,000 to Stanton Friedman and assigned him the task of establishing or destroying his own validity. What a snow job. People in the UFO community fell for the scam and eagerly awaited Stanton Friedman's findings. Of course, Friedman found that the documents were genuine. Just what did people think he would find? He was given $16,000 to investigate himself. It is unethical. It is a clear conflict of interest. I sincerely believe it to be criminal fraud. Since money was taken in the process, those who donated money in good faith should immediately bring a suit against Stanton Friedman, Bruce Maccabee, and the Fund for UFO Research. This farce resulted in the total waste of $16,000. Many thousands of man's hours have gone down a rat hole. If you don't believe, if you doubt the secret government's ability to lead you through the rose garden, you had better think again. Another plan is in force. It is a plan to prepare the public for eventual confrontation with an alien race. It could also intend to make you believe in an alien race that may not exist. The public is being bombarded with movies, radio, advertising, and TV programs depicting almost every aspect of the purported true nature of an alien presence. This includes the good and the bad. Look around and pay attention. Someone is planning to make their presence known, and the government is preparing you for it. They do not want any panic. The unprecedented number of sightings worldwide indicates that the public exposure is not far off. Never in history have there been so many incidents involving UFOs, and never in history have there been so many official acknowledgments. For many years, the secret government has been importing drugs and selling them to people, mainly the poor and minorities. Social welfare programs were put into place to create a dependent, non-working element in our society. Give me a minute. I am checking my charts. Okay. The government then began to remove these programs to force people into a criminal class that did not exist in the 50s and 60s. The government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for the criminals to use. This is intended to foster a feeling of insecurity which would lead the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms, using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients in a process called Orion. The CIA inculcated the desire in these people to open fire on schoolyards and thus inflame the anti-gun lobby. This plan is well underway and so far is working perfectly. The middle class is begging the government to do away with the Second Amendment. Authors note, I have found that these events have indeed happened all over the country in every instance that I have investigated. The incident at the women's school in Canada, the shopping center incident in Canada, the Stockton, California massacre, and the murder of Rabbi Mir Kahane. The shooters were all ex-mental patients or were current mental patients who were all on the drug Prozac. This drug, when taken in certain doses, increases serotonin levels in the patient, causing extreme violence. Couple that with a post-hypnotic suggestion or control through an electronic brain implant or microwave or ELF intrusion, and you get mass murder, ending in every case with the suicide of the perpetrator, exhumed the bodies of the murderers, and checked for a brain implant. I think you're going to be surprised. In every case, the name of the murderer's doctor or mental treatment facility has been withheld. I believe we will be able to establish intelligence community connections and or connections to known CIA experimental mind control programs when we finally discover who these doctors of death really are. Due to the wave of crime sweeping the nation, the media will convince the American people that a state of anarchy exists within our major cities. They are now building their case almost nightly on TV and daily in the newspapers. When public opinion has been won to this idea, they intend to state that a terrorist group armed with a nuclear weapon has entered the United States and that they plan to detonate this device in one of our cities. This is now being set up by the crisis in the Middle East. The government will then suspend the Constitution and declare martial law. The secret alien army of implanted humans and all dissidents, which translates into anyone they choose, will be rounded up and placed in the 1 mile square concentration camps, which already exist. Are the people whom they intend to place in these concentration camps destined to make up the reported batch consignments of slave labor needed by the space colonies? The media, radio, TV, newspapers, and computer networks will be nationalized and seized. Anyone who resists will be taken or killed. This entire operation was rehearsed by the government and military in 1984 under the code name Rex 84A, and it went off without a hitch. When these events have transpired, the secret government and or alien takeover will be complete. Your freedom will never be returned to you, and you will live in slavery for the remainder of your life. You had better wake up, and you had better do it now. Philip Klass is an agent of the CIA. This was stated in the documents I saw between 1970 and 1973. One of his jobs as an aviation expert was to debunk everything to do with UFOs. All military commanders were instructed to call him to gain information on how to debunk or explain UFO contacts and or sightings to the public, and or if the press if and when the need arose. Some people seem to love Klass. They encourage him and heap large doses of attention upon him. He is invited to speak at UFO events and is quoted in papers, books, and newspapers as being the expert on what really happened. Philip Klass is not operating in our best interest. His debunkings and explanations of UFO sightings are so full of holes that a 6-year-old child should be able to discern his true purpose. I have seen more misled people actually ask Klass for his autograph and act similar in magnitude to Elliot Ness asking Al Capone for his autograph. I have found that in many instances, the secret elect are absolutely right when they state that people who will not use their intelligence are no better than animals who do not have intelligence. Such people are beasts of burden and stakes on the table by choice and consent. Quote from Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars in Chapter 2. We get exactly what we deserve in most instances. William Moore, Jamie Shandera, and Stanton Friedman are witting with full knowledge, understanding, and consent agents of the secret government. William Moore's reported use of a Defense Investigative Service ID card and his reported self-confession to Lee Graham that he is an agent of the government confirmed it. Lee Graham phoned me at my home and when asked, confirmed that Moore had indeed shown him a Defense Investigative Service ID. Moore's latter confession proved it without any doubt. Author's note: on July 1st, 1989, the night before I presented this paper at the MUFON Symposium in Las Vegas, William Moore admitted that he was a government agent, that he had released this information to researchers that had falsified documents, and that he had spied upon researchers and reported information concerning those researchers to the intelligence community, that he had helped in counterintelligence operation against Paul Benowitz, that he had helped in a counterintelligence operation against Paul Benowitz that resulted in Mr. Benowitz's commitment to a mental institution, and that he had done all this with full knowledge of what he was doing. He is either a traitor or a stone-hearted manipulator at best. And I'm going to pause. I want to see how far we got to go. I mean, this could have been 4 chapters, okay? I just don't understand. Okay. Sure, we almost done. Oh, this is the longest chapter ever. Okay, we almost done. So I'm going to keep going. We done made it this far. Let me drink a sip of water. I know y'all like, why would she do this long of a video? I did not know this chapter was this long. I done stood up, walked, worked out. And now I'm finna sit back down. Okay. Some of the self-appointed UFOologists still look up to Mr. Morgan and still cite his research in their correspondence papers and books. This reflects a degree of ignorance and stupidity in the UFO community. Bruce Maccabee wrote a letter to KTsAlchmy, citing articles from William Moore's publication, Focus, as proof that I am discredited. Dream on. It is no mystery to me why mainstream America calls UFOologists wackos, loonies, and nuts. In some cases, they are. Jamie Shandero is the man responsible for my loss of employment as the executive director of National Technical College. Shortly after going public, Shandero showed up at the college wearing a brown suit and carrying a briefcase. He ignored the receptionist's attempts to help him. She informed me that a man walked into the college and appeared to be inspecting the building and classrooms. I found that Mr. Shandera peering into the word processing classroom. I asked him if I could be of any help. He said no and ignored me. I explained that I was the executive director and again asked if I could be of any help. Again, he said no, but gave me some very hard stares and appeared to have been taken off guard. He seemed to be extremely nervous and immediately left the building. I followed him out the door, and a man across the street snapped my picture with a 35mm camera. I watched as Jamie Shandera walked to his car, took one last look at me, and then drove away. A few days later, he repeated the act. Only this time he told me that he had seen an ad. Lost my place. Oh, he had seen an ad that the college was for sale and he was looking over the property. I saw him again coming out of the corporate offices. When he saw me again, became extremely nervous and hurried to his car, took off his jacket before getting in and then drove off. A few minutes later, I was called to the president's office and told that the college could not use anyone who could jeopardize the status of the government assistance by getting involved with flying saucers. I knew what had happened and tendered my resignation effective April 15th, 1989. I had no intention of stopping my activities and I did not wish to hurt the college or the students who depended so much on government aid programs. All this time, Shandera thought he had pulled it off anonymously but I and several others have always known that it was he. Now you know. Jamie Shandera was positively identified by me, the security department head, and the receptionist. Later, I obtained another positive identification from the vice president in charge of admissions. John Lear, the only person who knew the name and address of my place of employment. I later found out by body proportion comparison analysis and voice print analysis that John Lear is the agent dubbed Condor on the CIA-backed TV production of UFO Cover-Up Live. As Condor, he is, in reality, a government agent who has been working with Moore, Shandera, Friedman, John Grace, Bob Lazar, and others all along. They are CIA all the way. Stanton Friedman has told me and others that years ago he helped develop a nuclear reactor to power an aircraft that was the size of a basketball, was clean, turned out hydrogen, and worked like a dream. His words, not mine. Several others have written me to say that they also were told the same thing by Friedman. Roger Schreier is one who remembers Stanton relating to him the same story. The only fuel which could go into such an engine and produce hydrogen as a byproduct is water, and that is precisely what at least one type of alien craft uses nuclear energy and water, according to the documentation I read while in naval intelligence. Is he really unwitting? I seriously doubt it. He was a member of the Morse, Shandera, and Friedman research team, and it was they who implemented the Majestic 12 contingency plan. In documents that I read between 1970 and 1973, the names of individuals were listed. The names of individuals were listed who had been targeted for recruitment. These documents stated that these people were to be coerced using patriotism as a motivating force whenever possible. If necessary, financial assistance would be provided through employment with a proprietary front company or through grants. This is coincidentally the method by which Friedman got his $16,000 from another agent, Bruce Maccabee. We have also found that Moore has received money for research from at least 2 CIA front companies. This has been confirmed by the research of Grant Cameron. Others named on the list were cited as active intelligence agency assets. When I first presented this paper, I gave only a partial list of those named in the naval intelligence documents. Following are as many names as I can remember. There may be more, but these are all that I can recall at this time. And y'all, Stanton Friedman, CIA, John Lear, CIA. Lear's father was named as having participated in anti-gravity research. William Moore, John Keel, Charles Berlitz, Bruce Maccabee, ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence, Linda Moulton Howe, Philip Class, CIA, James Mosley, CIA. Mosley's father was discussed in a very complimentary manner. Vigor Armstrong, CIA, listed as postulate. Wendell Stevens, CIA. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, CIA. That is the list as I remember it. There may have been others, but I cannot recall. I know of other agents who were not on the list. You must remember that when I first wrote this paper, I thought that Bruce Maccabee might not have been recruited, but then later he proved me wrong when he gave Stanton Friedman $16,000 to investigate himself. There was a 2-word code that these people were to use to identify each other. The first word was a color and the second word was a bird. The code was Gold Eagle. When Stanton Friedman first contacted me, he used the code. I pretended ignorance, but he had asked me several times if I had ever seen or heard of Gold Eagle. John Lear also asked me if I had ever heard of Gold Eagle. He too was testing me. They knew that I had access to correct information and were attempting to determine if I were one of them. As George Bush would say, read my lips, I was never one of you. I will never be one of you. When I talked to Stan Dio in Australia by phone, he told me the code given to him was Blue Falcon. Stan was a victim of mind control experimentation while a cadet at the Air Force Academy. He and over 80 other cadet mind control subjects resigned from the academy in protest. He has been on a crusade to discover the truth ever since. Stan has written two excellent books, The Cosmic Conspiracy and The Vindicator Scrolls. I recommend it. I recommend you read them both. I think that Linda Moulton Howe may be innocent of witting involvement. Linda in particular seems to have exercised extreme care in what she has presented to the public. Her research is excellent. I was impressed when she confided to me that Sergeant Richard Doty of the Counterintelligence Division of the Air Force Office of Special Investigations had taken her into the intelligence office at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico and showed her the exact same documents that I had seen while in the Navy. She even saw the same information on the Kennedy assassination, naming Greer as the assassin. Miss Howe is also the only person in the world outside of the intelligence community who knows the truth as well who knows the truth as I know it regarding Operation Majority. She has exercised good judgment and great restraint in not revealing the contents of these documents to the public. It is for this reason that I believe an attempt has been made to use her. Fortunately, Linda did not fall off a turnip truck and she didn't play the game. I recommend you read her book entitled Alien Harvest. You should be able to order it from any good bookstore. I have discovered that Whitney Strieber is a CIA asset, as is Bud Hopkins. Strieber's book, Majestic, has convicted him with those of us in the know. It is the true story of the Roswell crash taken from the confiscated diaries of James Forrestal. That is, assuming that the documents that I saw in the Navy were not a hoax. I do not believe that they were. The names of the people and the names of the projects and operations have been changed in Stryper's book, but other than that, the information and documentation is true. The autopsy reports are exactly the same that I saw in Project Grudge 18 years ago. I have recently come into possession of an affidavit that is signed, notarized, and sworn under penalty of perjury from an MD in New York stating that the MD was recruited by a CIA agent named Bud Hopkins to help work with abductees for the CIA. The affidavit is included in the appendix. I knew that Hopkins was not right when I met him in Modesto. He could not look me in the eyes, and anyone who cannot look me in the eyes is not right. He spent the whole time, including his speech, trying to convince people of the innocence of the abductee experience and the absence of the aliens' malevolence, which was a total crop. It was an insult to anyone who had investigated abductees. I know that all the major UFO research organizations were targeted for infiltration and control by the secret government, just as NICAP was infiltrated and controlled. In fact, NICAP was eventually destroyed from within. I know that these efforts have been made successful. MUFON is a great example. Hundreds of members all over the world conduct investigations and send in physical evidence to MUFON headquarters, where it quickly disappears. Everyone screams for physical evidence. As proof, recently samples were collected of a liquid that had dripped from a saucer into a schoolyard in Gulf Breeze, Florida. The samples were sent to MUFON, where they immediately vanished, whilst Andrews had stated that it was an accident. Baloney. This is not the first time MUFON has lost evidence. I consider MUFON the great black hole of the UFO community. The control of information is so tight that nothing escapes. Anyone who tells it like it really is debunked and borrowed from some symposiums. I don't know why I want to say some synopsis. The members are told what to believe and what not to believe. The members do not seem to know that they are being controlled. The members of the MUFON Board of Directors and the members of the Advisory Board of Consultants are, for the most part, supported by the government in the form of salaries, grants, or retirement checks. Who can believe that this does not constitute a conflict of interest? Who can investigate and expose the hand that feeds them? How can you possibly believe the government could not control people to whom it funnels money? Money is the basic method of control. The major UFO publications are, without any doubt, controlled and are most probably, as in the case with UFO, financially backed or controlled by the CIA. Vicky Cooper, no relation. The editor and publisher of UFO has been telling friends and relatives for at least 2 years that the CIA is pushing her magazine. Ron Reger and Lee Graham remember the summer of 1998 when Vicky interviewed them at Mr. Graham's residence in Huntington Beach. After the interview was over, Vicky Cooper walked to her car, turned, and mysteriously yelled, "You know my magazine might be financed by the CIA." I have talked to friends and acquaintances of Mrs. Cooper who swear that she has stated on many occasions that the CIA controls UFO magazine. Vicky Cooper's uncle, Grant Cooper, was Sirhan's defense attorney who made no attempts to defend his client. It was important to the secret government and the CIA that Sirhan be pinned as a lone assassin. Grant Cooper has extensive ties to the CIA and the Johnny Roselli mob. We have found that Vicky's son attends the West Point Military Academy. What a wonderful way to control a magazine. You don't play ball, your son won't graduate. I found out that the person who found Vicky Cooper an apartment when she arrived in Los Angeles was Barry Taft, a longtime employee of the intelligence agencies, yes, plural, and a longtime protege of Dr. John Lilly and Dr. Jay West, the government's premier experts in mind control. These men have been involved in the most terrifying experimentation ever directed at total control of individuals. I believe there is no coincidence that Taft's apartment is directly above Vicky's. All of this was confirmed independently in a letter written by Mr. Martin Cannon, a Los Angeles-based researcher. The letter can be found in the appendix. The most damaging the most damning evidence for the control of UFO magazine Vicky Cooper comes from Don Ecker. At the 1989 MUFON conference, Don Ecker became so uninhibited that he managed to relate the following story to me and two others. According to Don Ecker, Vicky Cooper was used to work for the infamous Mayflower Madam. The feds were trying to get Madam and discovered Vicky. The Miss Cooper was busted and threatened with spending the rest of her life in prison if she did not cooperate. Vicky rolled over, according to Ecker, and ratted on her employer. Since Vicky had apparently had something to do with the bookkeeping operation, she became a key witness. The Mayflower Madam was put out of business and into jail thanks to Mrs. Cooper's testimony. That is, if Don Ecker was telling the truth. We have no reason to believe that he was lying. I don't know why Don told us. Maybe he doesn't like Vicky, or maybe he, like Lear and Friedman, thought I was one of them. If 11 be a cold day in hell. According to Ecker, Vicky Cooper was told to get out of town and stay out. She was given money and told to start UFO magazine in Los Angeles. She was told that she was to print information that would be fed to her. Sure enough, you read in UFO purported 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 leaked government UFO information, always written by someone who cannot be contacted. It is always under an alias. No one can check the information. Vicky is adamant about printing only the news and information that she considers best for the readers, as if they have no mind of their own. She indulges in character assassination. Don Ecker claims to have been a member of Army Intelligence, the Green Berets, and later police officer in Boise, Idaho. Dunn claims a total of 10 years experience as a criminal investigator. The Boise Police Department, when asked by phone, has denied any knowledge of Mr. Ecker. I have requested that Dunn furnish a copy of his Army record, but he has refused. Ecker calls himself a UFO expert and has dubbed himself, yep, you guessed it, a UFOologist. He sprinkles terms of UFO logical around his articles, and not even Dunn knows what the hell it means. He confirms most of the information that I have divulged when he speaks to other groups. He has furnished databases with a plethora of files that confirm everything that I have ever said. Ecker probably made himself since Ecker probably made them up himself since they are all anonymous. He claims that aliens mutilate humans like cattle. Don Ecker, like Vicky Cooper, practices character assassination. According to legitimate law enforcement sources, Ecker is lying to the public. He was a guard at the Idaho State Prison from September 1981 to September 1982, when he quit to become a Canyon County Sheriff's Department narcotics deputy trainee. Don Francis Ecker II was fired after only 6 weeks for improper conduct. Mr. Ecker returned to the Idaho State Prison, where he was employed as a guard until July 1987, when he shot off his leg with a shotgun during a training exercise. Well, dang. Sources also revealed that Donald Francis Ecker II is a fugitive from justice. Authorities in Idaho hold several outstanding warrants for the arrest of Mr. Ecker. You must understand that the government is not ever going to allow any person or any group of persons to uncover the most highly classified secret in the world. If they can help it, they will always have agents controlling UFO groups, publication, and information. If aliens are not real, and the whole thing turns out to be the greatest hoax ever perpetrated, just who do you think did the perpetrating? If the underground history is correct, aliens have manipulated and or ruled the human race through various secret societies, religion, magic, witchcraft, and the occult. The Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission are in complete control of the alien technology and are also in complete control of the nation's economy. Eisenhower was the last president to know the entire overview of the alien problem. Succeeding presidents were told only what Majesty 12 and the intelligence community wanted them to know. Believe me, it was not the truth. Majesty 12 has presented most new presidents with a picture of a lost alien culture seeking to renew itself, build a home on this planet, and shower us with gifts of technology. In some cases, the president was told nothing. Each president, in turn, has swallowed the story or no story at all. Hook, line, and sinker. Meanwhile, innocent people continue to suffer at the hands of alien and human scientists. I have been unable to determine exactly what it is they are doing. Many people are abducted and are sentenced to live with psychological and physical damage for the rest of their lives. Could this really be a CIA mind control operation? In the documents I read, 1 in 40 humans had been implanted with the devices, the purpose of which I have never discovered. The government believes that the aliens are building an army of implanted humans who can be activated and turned upon us at will. You should also know that to date we have not even begun to come close to parity with the aliens. I sent 536 copies of a petition to indict to every member of the Senate and House of Representatives on April 26, 1989. As of this date, November 23, 1990, I have received a total of only 6 replies, only 4 more than I had received in May 1989. The conclusions are inescapable. 1. The secret power structure may believe that by our own ignorance or by divine decree, planet Earth will self-destruct sometime in the near future. These men sincerely believe that they are doing the right thing in an attempt to save the human race. It is terribly ironic that they have been forced to take as their partner an alien race which is in itself engaged in a monumental struggle for survival. Many moral and legal compromises have been made in this joint effort. These compromises were made in error and must be corrected. Those responsible should be brought to account for their actions. I can understand the fear and urgency that must have been instrumental in the decision not to tell the public. Obviously, I disagree with that decision. Throughout history, small but powerful groups of men have consistently felt that they alone were capable of deciding the fates of millions. Throughout history, they have been wrong. This great nation owes itself This great nation owes its very existence to the principles of freedom and democracy. I believe with all my heart that the United States of America cannot and will not succeed in any effort that ignores those principles. Full disclosure to the public should be made, and we should proceed to save the human race together. 2. We are being manipulated by a joint human-alien power structure which will result in a one world government and the partial enslavement of the human race. This has been deemed necessary to solve the elemental question, who will speak for planet Earth? It has been decided that man is not mature enough in his evolutionary development to be trusted to interact properly with an alien race. We already have enough trouble between the different races. So what would happen if a totally alien extraterrestrial race was introduced? Would they be lynched, spit upon, or shot? Would discrimination result in nasty encounters that would doom humanity as a result of the aliens' obviously superior technology? Have our leaders decided to lock us in the playpen? The only way to prevent this scenario from taking place is to cause an evolutionary leap in consciousness, a paradigm shift for the entire human race. I have no idea how it can be done, but I do know that it desperately needs to be done. It needs to be done very quickly and quietly, and very quietly. 3. The government has been totally deceived and we are being manipulated by alien power, which will result in total enslavement and or destruction of the human race. We must use every means available to prevent this from happening. If none of the above are true, something else may be happening, which is beyond our ability to understand at this moment. We must force disclosure of all the facts, discover the truth, and act upon it. The situation in which we find ourselves is due to our own actions or inactions over the last 44 years because it is our own fault. We are the only ones who can change future events. Education seems to me to be a major part of the solution. The remaining part is the abolition of secrecy. 5. There's always the possibility that I was used that the whole alien scenario is the greatest hoax in history designed to create an alien enemy from outer space in order to expedite the formation of a one world government. I have found evidence that this could be true. I have included that evidence in Appendix 1. In the appendix, I advise you to consider this scenario as being probable. Through ignorance or misplaced trust, we as a people have abdicated our role as the watchdog of our government. Our government was founded on the people, of the people, for the people, by the people. There was no mention or intent to ever abdicate our role and place our total trust in a handful of men who meet secretly to decide our fate. In fact, the structure of our government was designed to prevent that from ever happening. If we had done our jobs as citizens, we would never have reached this point. Most of us are completely ignorant as to even the most basic functions of our government, we have truly become a nation of sheep, and sheep are always eventually led to a slaughter. It is time to stand up in the manner of our forefathers and walk like men. I remind you that the Jews of Europe marched obediently to the ovens after having been warned, believing all the while that the facts could not possibly be true. When the outside world was told of the Holocaust occurring in Hitler's Europe, it was not believed at first. You must understand that, real or not, the purported presence of aliens have been used to neutralize certain widely different segments of the population. Don't worry, the benevolent Space Brothers will save you. It can also be used to feel the need for an extraterrestrial threat to justify the formation of the New World Order. The aliens are eating us. The most important information that you need to determine your future actions is that this New World Order calls for the destruction of the sovereignty of nations, including the United States. The New World Order cannot and will not allow our Constitution to continue to exist. The New World Order will be a totalitarian socialist system. We will be slaves shackled to a cashless system of economic control. If the documentation that I viewed while I was in naval intelligence is true, then what you have just read is probably closer to the truth than anything ever written. If extraterrestrials are a hoax, then what you read is exactly what the Illuminati wants you to believe. What you read is exactly what the Illuminati wants you to believe. I can assure you beyond any shadow of a doubt that even if aliens are not real, the technology is real. Anti-gravity craft exist and human pilots and fly them. I and millions of others have seen them. They are metal, they are machines, they have come in different shapes and sizes, and they are obviously intelligently guided. If suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species from another planet, we forget all about we forget all the little local differences that we have between our two countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings of this earth. Ronald Reagan to Mikhail Gorbachev. And these are the sources. We are finally done, honey. I'm going to pause, scroll, pause, scroll. I hear owl. All right, so next time we get together, we're going to be on chapter 13. Peace and power, and I'm out of here.